Hi, I'm Drew.
And I'm Sam.
And welcome to Drewling Samantics. Sam, are you starting without me, buddy? Easy.
There you are. No. I was merely lubricating the vocal cords, ready for a good old natter with my dear mate Drew. How are you, buddy? It's great to see you.
I'm very good, mate. I tell you what, I'll just take a slurp of the in the Drewling Samantics mug. It is just tea, guys. It is
going to be a running theme each episode now. We're going to try and get the Drewling Samantics mug in so we can sell more merchandise. Drewling Samantics mugs are available. Please do contact us. Or shirts if you would like a shirt. A lovely shirt. There we go.
Oh yeah. Lovely.
And we've alienated our podcast audience already. We've gone YouTube heavy with imagery. But no, if you are listening, we love you very dearly. But you can equally buy some merch if you want to. Just
absolutely. Just let us know. Yeah.
Anyway, I got very distracted very quickly.
Sorry, mate.
You're about to tell me how you are because I know you've had an exciting week, haven't you? Because you've been.
I have. Yeah, we're talking of plugging merchandise and advertising. That's kind of what I've been doing this week because I've done another commercial shoot, which was lovely. 2 days of very early morning calls because I was in the makeup chair again. But it's been a lovely 2 days. It was fabulous to work. Obviously, to kick the year off with a nice bit of work and that. Really good fun.
Go on. You said early. Go on. Just put it into context for those of us that weren't up at silly o'clock. What time were you picked up to go and get?
I was picked up. I had my own car, which is lovely.
And all right.
It's only to get me there on time because it was at first morning was 5:15. And I was picked up at home. We were filming not far from home, but 5:15, and I was in the makeup chair at 5:30. And then the next day, 6:15, I lie in for an hour in the makeup chair at 6:30. It is a long process. It's a three hour process to get it on.
I was going to say, was the second day later because the day before they were like, we've spent hours on this and we've got nowhere, so tomorrow we might as well not bother.
It's not worth it. Yeah.
No.
It was. We literally. It was all organised around actually the availability of the dog that we were using. There's a beautiful dog in the commercial, and we're working around that. So I get in.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah. Well, he has appeared in a couple of the other ones. So
yes, of course, yeah,
beautiful dog. But it's all around that. So get me ready early, and then we can work with the dog, and then he finishes and is taken off, and in a lap of luxury.
How does it feel to be playing second fiddle to a dog, mate?
Oh no, we're a team. We're a very close.
Oh, okay,
team.
Sorry.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he gets all the cute moments, and I get all the hard work. But no, it's lovely. But it's very interesting that how scheduling the day worked because you do have to work around the comfort of the animal.
Yeah.
And extraordinarily well looked after, beautiful creature, and really interesting to see how a whole shoot day is structured around the welfare and the well-being of the dog, and rightly so. I mean, we're humans. We can speak for ourselves. We can go, I think I need a comfort break, or could we just take 5 minutes to have a slurp of water or whatever? We can speak for ourselves. The animals can't, so they do need to be looked after, and he is very well looked after. But beautiful animal. But yeah, and the day was structured around because we were shooting a TV commercial and bits for social, and also stills stuff as well. So it was a day of working on. At one point, there were three units working. There was an animal unit, a first unit, and a stills unit.
Brilliant.
Amazing to watch these guys work because they have a very short time, and they were building walls, false walls in the house so that we could film ostensibly the same scene, but with Doggy in one and me in the other.
But simultaneously doing the same thing almost.
Simultaneously doing the same shot, which would then be cut together, which is incredible work. And the stills photographer as well is recreating those moments. So he's walking in, so the room is lit. He comes in, sets his camera rig up, and his team come in, and they shoot that. I mean, amazing, to watch these guys work in tandem and then create, the TV commercial, but then all the still stuff. They're incredible. I mean, the photographer was really clever, and they're all clever, but on the back of that, he's creating something that tells the story even further down the line. So
and you know what, mate? You've had an incredible week, and you're talking about a very talented photographer who helped make that happen. And it just so happens that today is very photography centric, because we are lucky enough to have our first guest of season 7, drum roll and explosions and fireworks and blah, 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 who just so happens to be a photographer. However, that's not really where he started out, which is interesting. But rather than me try and explain exactly how that came about, I think the best way is just to get him in to talk about himself. So, ladies and gentlemen, please meet a good friend of both Drew and mine, the wonderful Mr. Will Gillham.
And it's good morning to Mr. Will Gillham. How lovely to have you with us, mates.
Hello, how are you both?
I'm very well. I believe Sam is well. He's looking the same as usual, so it's difficult to tell.
Lovely, thanks, mate. I mean, we've just spent the last couple of minutes having a lovely chat, and now you're acting like you haven't seen me for a year. But anyway, speaking of not seeing people for a while, Mr. Gillham, it is wonderful to see you, sir. You're looking very well.
Well, thank you very much. I'm kind of dressed a bit like a lumberjack today, but thank you very much for the compliment.
I think the check is working for you, mate. The check shirt's working for you.
I've got to that stage in life where I can buy M&S shirts and feel like this is fine for my age now. So I'm happy with it.
So anyone that's just currently listening and not on YouTube, you're missing out on Will's beautiful shirt. So if there's a reason, if any, to tune into us on YouTube as well as listening to the podcast. But speaking of our wonderful guest, Mr. Will Gillham, people may not know who you are. We are lucky enough to have both worked with you on numerous occasions, so we know you very well. But for those out there who haven't had the pleasure, could you please give a little bit of an intro into who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So yes, I am Will Gillham. I am an actor based in London. I say I'm an actor. I am also a photographer, and I am also a tour guide, mainly a headshot photographer. But I also do a little bit of theatre photography as well. In terms of acting, done quite a few interactive dinner theatres, theatre shows with you two, of course. But then I've also done lots of outdoor touring. That seems to be my main thing, really. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Quite the variety.
Yeah. Brilliantly done. I mean, yeah, we've all worked together on the interactive dinner stuff lots of times, many times. I know you've done a lot of outside touring, and that's become a bit of a speciality for you. I mean, it does, and we've spoke about it briefly in the past, Sam and I. It has its own very unique, shall we say, aspects. I mean, least of all, or the weather, but there are other. I mean, you do have to be incredibly fit and dedicated for that kind of work, don't you?
Yeah, it's something where literally over the years I've done it now, I've realized that my vocal capacity has increased considerably, because you first go out there and you see a crowd of about 300 people stretched out on lawns miles into the distance, and you think, I don't have a microphone. How am I gonna reach those people? But then you learn over time that it's not shouting like that. It's you just build up the muscles, but it's a tough job. It's driving all day, driving to places you've no idea where you're really going, and it's performing in venues that you've never come across before, and just having to adapt in that situation. But it's very fun. It's very, very fun.
Well, you say to different venues. I mean, where have you toured to? What is the variety of venues that you've pitched up at?
Well, effectively, I've kind of become a sponsor of the National Trust, effectively, by going to all the venues. It's I've been to lovely, been to areas of Cornwall that I've never expected to go to, up into like Nairn in Scotland, which is very, very far, very, very beautiful. Kind of mainly over the UK, to be honest. If I've been touring, I've traveled a little bit into Ireland as well. But yeah, in terms of outdoor theatre, oh sorry, I've just been you probably, well, you may
Oh,
know,
look, we have an extra visitor, a small
lovely,
ginger furry friend.
Yes, my lovely fat cat Orpheus. Here we are. He hates me speaking to the screen, so he always has to join in on calls.
Well, we love an interruption. It wouldn't be Drewling Samantics without something going a bit awry or a bit different to usual. So welcome. It's nice to have two guests on now, and another treat for our YouTube viewers who get to meet your lovely cat. So as Drew was saying, obviously there's a huge variety, and you do a lot of traveling with that.
Yeah.
Does that then sort of explain why you have these other, I guess, side ventures isn't quite the right word, sort of different strings to your bow, shall we say? Because when you're not touring, obviously then you need to fill the gaps, and there are big gaps between tours quite often. It's not as simple as going, right, well, I'll finish this one on the Sunday, and then Monday I'll start off on the next one. Is that part of the reason why you've branched out and done sort of different things alongside touring acting?
Yeah, partially. It's because mainly, obviously, with summer touring, obviously it's only going to be certain months of the year, and then obviously, yeah, it's what I think the big influence was when I was touring around the UK. You come across all these amazing places, and you think, right, I need to document these. I need to take as many photos as possible of these things. So that kind of, I had a very cheap camera when I got it in 2012, I believe, when basically I only really used it from when me and my girlfriend at the time, we would basically go out and just do these ridiculous shoots, oversaturate everything. Wasn't that very good. So I kind of left the camera sitting for a while. And then when I started touring the UK, I was like, right, I'm going to the southernmost point of Cornwall, got to photograph that, going to all these lovely places, as I say, in Scotland. And so I kind of started learning about the camera that way a bit more. And then from then on, I was like, I think I might want to make a little bit of money from this, and might want to kind of, and also kind of combine acting and photography. I was like, that's something that so many people do. It's something that is possible, and it's got a creative side to it. And I thought, yeah, I think that's the route I want to go with it.
So, I mean, the headshot thing, which we will mention, and is a new venture, but there can be nobody better to take an actor's headshot than an actor who obviously, like yourself, is a skilled photographer, because you know what is needed, and it is, I think Sam has referred to it as a visual CV. It's our calling card. Is that a help to when you have an actor sitting in front of you? You do know what obviously different people require different things, but you kind of know it's a really handy shortcut to be able to go, I know you're going to want this, I know you're going to want that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big mistakes that a lot of photographers can make, and they see an actor and they think they're perfectly fine in front of a camera. They're not going to be nervous. They want to do tons of poses, and they're really confident in front of me, shoving this camera in their face. That's very rarely the case. It's very rarely the case. When people come in for headshot sessions, you can guarantee the first 100 shots or so, everyone's going to look a bit like a rabbit in headlights. Just kind of, if they're trying to smile, they'll kind of do the Chandler Bing thing in Friends, for example, kind of the kind of look. But yeah, no, it's something where you can speak to another actor and say, I've gone through plenty of headshot sessions myself. This is what really helped me. Try this out. And it's about and you can connect to them. You can ask them, if you're asking them about their work, you've done that work as well. So you can you just have that connection immediately. So it's a much nicer environment, I'd say.
Yeah, it's an interesting one in that I think, as you say, Drew, I've referred to it previously as a visual CV. The impact of a good or equally a bad headshot is much bigger than perhaps a lot of people will realize. So you are selling yourself on a single image. Sometimes you will be able to include a CV, or sometimes you'll be able to include some sort of cover letter or something for certain auditions and certain applications. But a lot of the time, people in the casting world don't have time to read a long message or to read through historically what you've been part of. You are trying to make an impact immediately with a single photo, essentially. And what interests me, and I'd love to hear about from the photographer's perspective, is how do you, number one, how do you sort of take that on board and nail that kind of brief in a single photo? But equally, the big thing I want to ask about is the blend between perfection and realism. So obviously when anyone has a photo, they want to look as good as possible. And that's why we live in this world where social media is so incredibly fake, because you've got the most famous people in the world, potentially your most famous family in the world, the Kardashians. If you were to see them in real life and then to compare them to something they might put on Instagram, it could essentially be two different people, because photos are so heavily edited these days, because I guess modern generations, and in fact in general, we have this vision of what is perfection and what we all should strive to look like, or what we all want to look like.
Yeah.
How do you take that on board as a headshot photographer and go, right, well, this person wants to look great, so they're going to want perhaps a little bit of slight editing, but equally they're going into a real casting. They don't want their photo to go in before them and the casting director go, excellent, look at this beautiful person. And then Drew shows up and they go, what the fuck is this? As an example, my dear friend, but you know where I'm coming from. How does that affect what you do, Will?
That's it. It's about towing the line in between kind of, there's a big difference between fine art photography, where you've got, where you're going to be using Photoshop to effectively literally change a person's structure. Effectively, you're going to, some people might want slimmer waist. They might want a more kind of structured jaw. And you can do that with Photoshop. You can literally manipulate the image and alter it that way. With headshots, it's not about that at all. It's about getting the pose right, so that person is reflected into your camera lens immediately. That's the main thing. You can't get someone, you just can't get a mugshot where they don't look anything like they're going to look like if they go in through a casting door. You need to get that person in the lens, and that's the most key thing. And then in terms of editing their face, really, in terms of headshots, it's not that much. It's not that much. You don't want to make it kind of look like a comic book. I don't know. You don't want to make it look pop art or anything like that at all. It's about making it, just enhancing their image, enhancing it, maybe enhancing the eyes, making those stand out a lot more. That's the key thing in a headshot image. Is they want to look directly into the eyes, because that's the soul of the actor. But the key thing is that the actor going into a headshot session has to understand that they might see a different image of themselves to what is actually physically captured. And most people completely understand that. But there are some people, who just, they hate that idea. They hate what they look like in a photo. But it's about approaching that in a kind way, in a kind of reassuring way, and effective. And someone, I can't remember which photographer said it, but he said like photography is half taking the image and half a psychologist. And it's about, making them kind of comfortable in the situation. So yeah,
it's like hearing your voice for the first time, in a recording. Go, do I really sound like that? And it's you look at you get the contact sheets back, or you get those images, and you look at them and you go, do I look like that? Is that my smile? Is it, evidently it is. And then for a lot of actors, it's learning what you want to sell as well. You think, well, I know myself very well as an actor. I know what works for me. So I know I can say to a photographer, okay, I need that look, and one with a beard. And those are going to be the shots that I need. Or an agent will go, okay, we really need a commercial shot. We need you to look like a dad, or we need you to look like everyone's favorite uncle, or you've got to look like a doctor, teacher. Maybe that's sticking a pair of glasses on if you wear glasses. You get all those. But again, once the actor goes, okay, yeah, great, that looks fine. But then there are trends in what the industry likes, isn't there? So there are. I know a couple of years back, everyone was going, oh, we like the landscape shot of actors. Like, really? Because that was a kind of cinematic thing. I think that's past now. But Does that affect you as well? Do actors come in and go, oh yeah, I like those shots that so-and-so's had done, they seem to be very much the vogue? Do you get crowbarred into that occasionally, having to do that for people?
Yeah, occasionally. Most people will go in because they've seen your photos on your portfolio and they say, okay, we like that kind of style that you do. But yes, the landscape thing in particular, personally, I didn't really understand it. Because I thought, it's, if we need a landscape image to come up with the idea of what someone's going to look like on a screen, that's almost saying, looking at a 10:8 headshot, like, I can't possibly imagine what they can look like on the screen. I think that's saying that casting directors don't have the imagination that they clearly do. So I think that was a very short-lived kind of style that people wanted. It's not hard to do by any means. I just thought it was a strange thing for people to need all the time. But then, yeah, people do. The problem is what you said earlier, Sam, with looking at, people looking at pictures on TikTok, Instagram, of the Kardashians. When people want to look like them, you kind of have to sometimes say, just so you know, that was a photoshopped image. That was,
they don't look like them, let alone you.
Yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, in terms of most people will take styles from other headshot photographers. So they will say, oh, I looked at Michael Worley's photography, for example, which is amazing. He did some of my early photos, and ever since then I've been like, right, that's the standard I want to get to. But yeah, people will always be influenced by other people. They might not know how to tell you that's what they want, but you hope that what you provide them will be well more than sufficient, will be something that they really enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's another thing that sort of was saying earlier about going on tour and then having something to sort of fill the gaps in between. Has it now though become perhaps the direction you're going more so than acting? Not suggesting it's necessarily replacing it, but are you finding perhaps that you found a niche that really, really works for you?
Yeah, well, and obviously if my agent's listening, don't ever think I'm saying no to acting.
Yeah, so ignore.
Please give me work. No, it's something that I very much viewed it as a half and half thing. And I know plenty of actors, photographers that have done this, because to be honest, I'm now in this stage of my life. I recently got married, and and I wanted to spend a bit more time closer to home, as opposed to jetting off across the country every summer. So I'd like to spend a bit more time working from home in a kind of home studio situation, and suddenly just a bit more control over my career. I think that's the thing, as opposed to when it's the quiet times of acting, as opposed to saying, right, hopefully I'll try and find some, supply work in schools or things like that, which I'm starting to get a little bit over, to be honest. Really. And I love performing in schools. I love performing kids shows too, kind of Christmas shows in schools. But I'm not a major fan anymore, personally, of working in schools as a supply teacher. It's just not what my direction in life really wants to be right now.
No, but I guess we've all had to have what we like to refer to as muggle jobs at times, and you have to supplement things. And particularly, we very much try not to dwell on it anymore. But during lockdown, during the unwelcome guest, we had to look at other ways. I personally was very lucky that I did a lot of voiceover work, so that was something that I could do without being anywhere. I know you guys equally do voiceover work, and will you do some invigilating as well? Some marking, or you have done in the past, doing exams. Well, actually,
yeah, because it was the unwelcome guest who kind of changed that, really. Because I for a period of time at the beginning of each year, I would hire a load of invigilators via an agency to go out to various schools around London as invigilators. One of the easiest jobs that you can do. But then literally the unwelcome guest appeared, and of course all exams were off. Well, yeah. So I had to make a little bit of change there, and I suddenly thought, well, where's the work going to be? It's hospitals. So and because my wife got COVID pretty badly, and I didn't seem to be affected by it, I thought, why not try? I seem to have some kind of weird immunity to the effects anyway. So I worked as a cleaner for a period of time, but that's kind of what got me a bit further into photography, because I was able to walk to work along Isleworth, a lovely stretch of the River Thames, and I just started taking photos of that area. And I thought, I really like this. I really like doing this, and I can, and I started developing it from there, really.
Tour guiding. We'll just touch
yeah.
on that, because I know a couple of friends of mine do the tour guiding stuff. What sort of stuff do you do? Where do you work with that? Because I know there are. It's a really tough job. People go, tour guide's piece of cake. It isn't. It's a real tough one. I know it can be really hard work.
It is a tough one. You can have various days where you think, right, I'm really gonna smash this. I'm gonna get tips galore. Not that you don't do it for the tips, of course.
No.
Of course not. No. But that's really, it's I started doing it because of my love for history, to be honest. I kept annoying people by going past these buildings saying, oh, do you know who lived here? Someone lived here in like 715 and 1715. And people would be like, okay, that's fine. Then I realized, right, this isn't the right crowd. I need to tell this to people who actually want to listen to it. So it's lovely going into, I go into mainly tour around Westminster, really. So I start kind of at Buckingham Palace. You have the changing of the guard, and then you go into Trafalgar Square, down Whitehall to see Big Ben, etc. And it's actually really nice seeing how all the tourists coming over here, they're just really excited about seeing, this clock tower that we see all the time, and or the changing of the guard, which now I've seen countless times. But it's really nice when you get a crowd of people who are really just happy to see this very traditional event. And it's great with acting alongside, because you're presenting to a crowd and you're telling stories, which is exactly what tour guiding and acting kind of is combined.
So have you found, and this is a slightly not off topic, but a slightly unusual question. So we as you well know, we had a chap called Phil on last season, who is also a photographer, but a very different sort of route of photography. He's much more into commercial photography, and he does a lot of film work as well. And he was talking very much about how the major downside to photography is the cost of equipment. So because obviously, as you say, you've got into photography, you started out because it was a passion, something you enjoyed, something that you found you were good at, and it's now become a more commercial venture. It's something that you've been able to make into a job. How do you balance the fact that the better you want to take photos, the more expensive equipment you need, and then once you've then done that, well, you need to work some more to then earn that. But is it not a complete vicious circle?
Oh yeah. You can never have all the gear that you need. You obviously always need something else. You don't, but you tell yourself every single time, like, oh, if only I had this lens, if only I had this type of light, then it would have been perfect. And so it's gas, isn't it? It's the gear acquisition syndrome, where you just keep on spending money, and it's insane how expensive all the stuff is. It is absolutely insane. I remember when I started out with voiceover, I saw that there was a microphone I might get for about 150. I thought, oh, that's far too much. I couldn't spend that much money. And now with photography, you see a lens, say a 24 to 70 millimeter lens, and it's about £1,000, and you think, yeah, I can justify that. I can justify that. And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened with I had a very nice job recently at the photographing the Assembly Hall Tunbridge Wells pantomime. Very nice job. That was actually suggested. I did it by a director I worked with, who got in contact with the director of that show and said, oh, Will's photographed some of our shows. He'd be great to photograph yours. So thank you very much to Dan for getting me that. But then I thought, right, I've got 2 days to prepare for this. I don't have any of the stuff I need. And I needed 2 lenses. I need one, which was a 24 to 70 millimeter, and I needed a longer, a 70 to 200. And they're both about £1,000 plus, depending on what light level you get. And so I was like, well, I have to get one. I had to get one of them. So I got one of them. And then actually that was luckily all I needed. But I could have spent £2,000 on a job which was going to pay me about a tenth of that, for example. Wow. So yeah, it's an investment. It's very much an investment, but you need to get, it's the thing I'd say to any people out there thinking, right, I might start up photography as well. I like taking photos with my phone. Use what you have. Use what you have. Don't, because there are so many YouTube channels, there's so many magazines that will tell you, if you buy this lens, then it makes everything better. And it does a bit, but really it's the person behind the lens that makes the difference.
Of course. And actually it's interesting you mentioned doing the theatre photography, because again, that's almost a completely different discipline. Yes, at the end of the day it's photography, but we've talked about how headshots, like you said, focal point is the eyes, that's what you want to see first, and getting that character across of that particular actor, that person, that performer, to then jump to taking photos of a pantomime, that completely different level altogether. How do you adjust between those two disciplines?
Yeah, well, it was basically, one is and the headshots very nice, calm, collected. You literally give people a cup of tea to begin with, and it's just a nice, relaxing experience. You want to make them relaxed. You can't be relaxed if you're doing a pantomime shoot, because it's a dress rehearsal. Everyone's stressed. Everyone is, the directors are stressed, the sound guys are stressed, all the lighting guys are all stressed. And so basically what you've got to do is you've got to dance around like a little pixie, going between all this available seats, finding the best place to find all these shots. And you don't know what order they're going to come up. You don't know what, you're seeing it for the first time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might be lucky and you might be given a kind of a running order and say, right, we'd really like a photo of this bit, or you know, this key bit in the play. You don't always get that. So what you've got to do is just listen as keenly as possible to what's probably going to happen, and just hope you've got everything set up for that. And also then you've got the different lights. And Sam, you know, with your panto as well, especially, I'm guessing you've got a huge variety of gels kind of changing all the moods. Yeah. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, because you suddenly think, right, I've got the perfect settings and everything's changed. And you've got to do the kind of technical side of things where you've got to change all the dials. But then as soon as you've done that, that shot may have gone. So you've got to be so quick and nimble on your feet.
Is that another element where, having been a performer or being a performer yourself, it really helps? I mean, at the end of the day, anyone that's seen a couple of pantos or a panto knows what's coming next to an extent. Panto is this incredible discipline where it's the most predictable collection of skits almost, and you can put it together, you know, boy meets girl, or girl meets girl, or boy meets boy, or whatever combination. Something goes wrong, but then they fall in love and there's a happily ever after. During that, you've got some nutter who's a bloke dressed as a woman that everyone knows is a bloke, but we have to pretend is a woman. Then you've got some really bad like guy or girl who is not really bad and becomes good, and yet there are all these like very predictable elements, so you know what's coming in that respect. But equally, having been a performer, you also know the behind the scenes of that, like this is where this person will always come from, or this will always happen, or this is the order of perhaps events. So I guess that's another advantage to you from that perspective, because you can kind of predict to a certain level, right, I know what's coming next. We've had the comic and the dame on for ages. We are bound to have either the hero or the villain come in next, because panto is like that. It does that sort of thing. Yeah, absolutely. And you can hear a certain type of dialogue where you're like, this is leading up to a current trendy song, which is going to have all the and it's one of those things where you're like, right, I've done this before. I know what's going on. And stuff like the dame's always going to get their 5 minutes of fame kind of. And so you can get lots of lovely profile shots there. But then when the tricky thing is when suddenly everyone appears on stage, and you've got to be like, right, okay, either I focus on, either I run away and try and get everyone individually, or try and get a nice big group shot. But it's like you say, it's a nice formulaic kind of thing, saying, right, they're going to be entering from the left, they're going to be entering from the right. It does help a lot. But though I should point out, I'm talking about with tour guiding, when I'm trying to explain pantomime to Americans, especially coming over, they're like, what on earth are you talking about? It's like, oh yeah, it's this Christmas tradition where, you know, men dress up as women, and it's full of innuendos, and it's for kids. So they don't really understand what I'm talking about, but it's like, you just got to go and see it. Yeah, and to all our American listeners out there, because we know there are a few of you, you have to just watch it. There is no describing panto. It is a British staple, and if you ever get the opportunity, please do go and see it, because even if it doesn't make sense to you, you'll enjoy it, because it's just ridiculousness on a stage. It's
Yeah.
Even we've lived it. I mean, Drew's done 8 million pantos over his 500 years on the planet, and I don't think even you could describe panto, really, could you, Drew?
No, I mean, it is, as Will said, it's a British Christmas staple tradition, and I think you can't describe it, you can only experience it, and you know, 99.9% of the time you'll just have a wonderful time. You know,
Yeah.
it is one of those things you can't explain, defies logic and explanation, which is a little bit like our wonderful guest this morning. You know, actor, photographer, tour guide, pantomime performer, good friend. We once worked together and got stuck for a weekend in Jersey after a gig, which because of high weather, high winds and bad weather. It was a very pleasant person to get stuck in Jersey with, Mr. Gillham. So yeah, I do remember we were forced to sit in the bar and drink, because I mean, dreadful weather. It was terrible.
It was absolutely.
But, I mean, I think I would probably debate the word forced, but I'll allow it for now. I mean,
no, the weather forced us to stay put. I'm putting it down to weather.
No,
but
that was I'm questioning it because I'm jealous. That's literally.
But I mean, that was a lovely sort of unforeseen moment in our working lives. But we get to that moment where we turn to our honoured guest, our great mate Will. You must have, from all that vast experience and those the world you work in, a funny story and unexpected moments, something you can tell us about to wind up today's really lovely episode, mate. So what have you got for us, Will?
Yes, well, basically, I thought rather than delve into photography, I thought I'd delve into the kind of more years of touring that I've had. And obviously, anyone knows with touring theatre, you're going to get a variety of kind of mishaps that come along. This was actually fairly recently, and I'm technically still feeling the repercussions of it in a weird way. It was working with a company called the Pantaloons. Lovely company. Worked for them, did about 3 shows with them now over the past 2 years. Basically, the whole thing is that we go around the country and we take classical literature and we put a kind of pantomime spin on it, really. So I tend to very silly, like, you know, we did the Tempest before, did Jekyll and Hyde, and then this summer we did the War of the Worlds, which everyone was like, how on earth are we going to turn that into summer theatre? It's more of a kind of autumn show. But actually, it worked fine, and it was got lots of very silly moments in it. But there was one silly moment which wasn't meant to happen. Basically, there's a section where, I should say, I was touring around with Lottie, who you know, basically who we've worked together quite a few times with, going around with in a 4-hander, and we came up to just south of Manchester. And started doing a lovely show in a very nice kind of effectively very grand garden. And it got to the second half, everything going absolutely fine. There's a section where basically Lottie faints. I catch her very quickly, prop her back up, and then we carry on as normal. Of course, the issue here was that basically I should really point out, when people do the health and safety talk with you, pay attention to the health and safety talk.
God, where is this going?
Right, when you're told, you know, in drama school, you're told if you're doing this stunt, you need to have a good stance. You need to make sure you're all supported. Bend from the knees. That's the key thing. In fact, that's the general kind of advice I'd say to any actor: just bend from the knees every single time you can. This time, however, basically, I was quite cocky. I'd been having a good show. I'd had the audience in the palm of my hand. I was saying, yeah, I'm invincible. I can do anything I like. So I do a little kind of offbeat kind of remark, etc. And then I go to catch Lottie. She faints. She does the job absolutely fine. I catch her. Then we keep going. We keep falling. We keep falling backwards. Don't really quite know what's happening here, but I don't seem to have any control over the situation. We both crash on the floor. And then I think, what on earth happened there? Why did I lose all control? I look down at my leg and I find that my knee has rotated about 90 degrees round to the left. So basically, I looked at that, and then Lottie looked at that, She went completely pale. She then turned to the audience and said, "That wasn't meant to happen." I said, "We might have to just stop the show momentarily." And of course, the issue is when you're doing a show which is very pantomime-esque, no one believes you.
No.
Effectively, so I can say it was about 2 minutes of trying to convince the audience that wasn't meant to have happened, and my knee is not normally there.
No.
And so basically, we had to put a call out saying, "Is there anyone that knows first aid?" And even the first aider who we were introduced to at the beginning, he was a bit tentative about coming up to the stage because he thought, "No, they're going to be picky on me. They're gonna put me into the show and they're going to make a kind of show of this." But yeah, so after about 2 minutes of being in agony while my knee had been dislocated, luckily he came over and he was able to help eventually in the end, kind of get it popped back per se. But but trying to explain to an audience, okay, so this isn't meant to happen. We are going to have to end the show here, and the audience goes, "Ow," and then one guy comes up and says, "But can we buy one of the T-shirts that you sell at the end of the show?" Because that's the thing that the pantaloons always do. We sell T-shirts as a kind of a nice little gesture. But so basically this Tad comes up with £10 notes, says, "Oh, can I just get a T-shirt from you?" And I'm saying, "I can't really move right now."
Slightly more pressing engagement right this second.
A slight issue right now. I was like, "I can't move. I can't go over to the T-shirts." And his family was like, Dad, go. Like, "Don't do this, Dad. You're embarrassing us." But yeah, luckily, well, actually, we got on contact to we phoned up 999. We said an ambulance is coming in about 7 hours. And so, which is fairly topical for now.
Yeah, modern politics, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, politics there. But then we had to, basically the first aid guy was like, "Okay, I've never done this before, but I think I know what I'm doing. If you just stretch your leg out, I'll try and pop it back in." So he was like, either you take the risk of me doing that now, or basically you wait for 7 hours. I was like, "I'm not willing to wait for 7 hours, so I will, just do what you want to do." And luckily, pop back in. But then I had no idea that I thought if you pop something back in, if it's desiccated, I thought that's it. I think you can just then carry on and it's all fine. No. About 6 months later, it's still having little effects now at the moment. Wow. So, but basically, luckily, I should say, but we did get to the hospital. It was all absolutely fine. They gave me a cast. They gave excellent service. Gave me a brace to perform. But then I was back on stage the next day.
Next day.
Yeah, I know. This is probably the most stupid decision I made in my life. It was just the thought of, I'm sure it's fine. I've got the brace on. We'll make lots of jokes on it. So basically, that was the recurring joke for the rest of it. When I had to do running scenes, I would just be hobbling along and kind of and following people very slowly behind. But yeah, it's a lovely example of the joys of outdoor theatre. But also, probably why I'm starting to think, I kind of want to work a bit closer to home nowadays, so I don't dislocate my knee in Manchester anymore. But
the photography is looking to be a much better option somehow, isn't it?
Yes. The only issue with photography is that sometimes you have to bend your knees quite a bit, and now it's a little bit of an issue. But yes, I should say, well done to the NHS. They did actually a very, very good job. Gave me lots of support and literally physically gave me support on with the leg brace and lots of help afterwards. But yeah, it's just one of the lovely things that can happen when you're on tour. So
it's intriguing. I mean, we had my good friend Harry Boyd on the show. Was it last season before? I can't remember. But he works for Mischief Theatre, or has worked for Mischief Theatre. And I had a similar story, not in I wasn't up there with him, but when I went and saw, I was reviewing Peter Pan Goes Wrong, and halfway through, or just as the interval was closing and they were about to start the second half, the stage manager came on stage and said, "Oh, we've had to replace one of the cast who has unfortunately been injured." And I don't think a single person in the auditorium believed that was true. But it actually was. It was similar sort of thing. When you're doing a comedy show, particularly something like a panto-esque show or something like Mischief Theatre, where the whole point is everything goes wrong, to then say something has gone wrong, people are going to go, "Oh yeah, great, carry on." No, genuinely something has gone wrong. But yeah, well, there we go. And another reason, as you say, that perhaps photography is starting to look a safer and a more appealing option. But we're hoping that it hasn't put you off and that you will
No,
continue.
not at all. Not at all. Not at
Brilliant,
all.
man.
Still love dancing around. Still like playing Basil 40 whenever I can and things like that. I can still do the walk. That's the main
Amazing.
thing.
That's the most important thing. And just to tie everything back together, what are you looking at forthcoming with photography? Where are you taking it? Is headshots going to be the thing? What's sort of your future plan, if any?
Yeah, well, what I'd like to do is basically it's still fairly early days, but I'd love to do more headshots. That's really the main thing I'd love to do. But then I also love doing quite a bit of theatre photography as well. So what I'm getting in contact with various different drama schools, for example, so they can, if they're ever interested in getting an extra photographer for their graduate shows, or for their graduates for their headshots, then I'd more than willing to help out with those. But really at the moment, yes, the headshots is the key thing, because at this time of year, everyone's gone through their New Year's resolutions, say, right, I'm going to get the new headshot, I'm going to get it done. And so basically what I'm offering at the moment, I'm offering a lovely 25% off for anyone who's listening to this podcast at the moment.
Oh, wow.
And if they'd like to come over to my lovely little place in Richmond, Southwest London, very accessible, and yeah, just nice, simple 1.5 hour shoot. Very nice and laid back. You've got a cat to be entertained with as well.
Obvious.
And a lovely selection of fruit teas, etc. So if that sounds appealing, basically I offer very good rates at the moment. So yeah, please do come along.
Incredible. Well, thank you. So yeah, absolutely.
Well,
if anyone's
brilliant.
looking to book headshots at the moment, all you have to do is mention Drewling Samantics and you get a discount. Who would have thought that there could be something so amazing to come from appearing with a couple of your old mates, having a drink and having a natter? There we go. But Will, mate, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been incredible hearing, I say your transformation, it's not really, but your sort of journey, and seeing how something that was merely a hobby or something that you picked up through another job has now become such a major focus and something that you're pursuing so passionately. So yeah, it's been wonderful, and we really appreciate you coming on to have a natter, mate.
Well, brilliant. Lovely to be here. Lovely to speak to you, both of you again, and yeah, we'll catch up again soon.
Of course,
we certainly will.
Of course. But, yeah, for now, mate, take care. Thank you so much.
Take care. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks
Take care,
much,
Will.
guys.
Cheers,
Have
mate.
a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I say it every time because we say it every time, but another lovely guest. And wasn't it nice to meet up with Will? I mean, we've worked together numerous times, all three of us, but and he had appeared in an earlier episode. Do you remember one of our road trips?
Yeah. So, I mean, anyone that noticed that deserves a real gold star.
Absolutely.
It was a very, very brief appearance.
It was.
But yes, no, it must have been back in season 1, I think.
It's around that time. It must be. I know it was a lunchtime gig that we were all doing together, and we were doing one of our, on location ones. And Mr. Gillham was in the background. I think he gave us a little wave.
He did.
But, but it's nice, fine to have him on, and plugging this amazing new venture of his, and not plugging it, but explaining it, because I know he's a very talented actor, and I'm sure he will make a very talented photographer.
Well, yeah, I've seen some of his work already, and it is stunning. And genuinely, if anyone out there is in the business and is in the market for some new headshots, couldn't possibly recommend Will more. And even you get a nice discount if you mention Drewling Samantics. How about that? So do get in contact with him. But as you say, Drew, a very talented actor, a superb photographer, and a brilliant storyteller. Just wonderful to catch up and hear some of his tales and what he's been up to and how he's kind of got to the point he's at now. So and the amazing future he has ahead with his career in many different ways. And there we go, the first guest segue potentially of season 7. I'm going to segue and ask, speaking of future, have you got a busy one coming up? What have you got coming?
No, next week. So next week's reasonably quiet. I've got a Fawlty Towers gig with Verona and Ed, Mr. Ed Wells.
Yeah.
But a reasonably quiet week. So after the early mornings of this week and the shoot, it might be nice just to peg it back a little bit. So yeah. But so that midweek gig. But that's it. What about yourself? Are you busy?
So an interesting one, and I'm not going to say too much at this point, because actually what I'd rather do is wait till sort of things are transpired. But I've managed to make contact with someone who I first worked with well over 10 years ago. And there's been sort of a hiatus. This is in the modelling world. And we've sort of reconnected. And there's a chance that I might be reappearing and working with him again. So I will see what, but hopefully this week I'm going to get the opportunity to see him and speak to him and do some more planning. But isn't it wonderful when just an old connection suddenly sort of comes out and something causes that to happen? I guess we can say about Will. I mean, we've worked with Will a lot, and it's really nice to get him on now that he's going a slightly different direction to how we know him. Making that connection again is great. And I have a potential opportunity maybe that will result in lots of things going forward. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, so a potentially entertaining and interesting week for me ahead. Making a reacquainting myself with an old friend. So we'll see. But aside from that, mate, I'm going to look forward to having another natter with you next weekend.
Oh, we can reacquaint ourselves at the end of next week and see what's been going on, mate.
So for now, reacquaint yourself with your beverage.
Tea of choice.
Cheers to you, Drew. Cheers, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks again, obviously, to Mr. Will Gillham for being a brilliant guest. Everyone else, we will see you next week.
Take care.
Take it easy. Ta-da. Thanks again for watching this episode of Drewling Samantics.
Please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video.
Don't forget, we're also available as audio only. Just search Drewling Samantics in any good podcast app. And please support us on social media. All our links and handles are on screen now.
We love welcoming new followers and subscribers, so why not share with your family and friends so they can join in too? Thanks very much. See you next time.